All right, today we are going to start with the Ryan Electronics transshipment problem, which I know you all spent a lot of time going over when you read the chapter, but I'll work it through for you anyway. Okay, it's on 274 of the 12th edition. They give us the problem in, can you get through? You can move this table if you need to. It starts in figure 6.6 is where they give you the data. They can give you this data in table form, which I think they do for the sample problem we're going to do in a little bit, or in node form like this is. It's the same info either way. So we might as well go ahead and get started with this. Ryan Electronics. I'm going to label these. You don't really need to, but I just kind of gotten in the habit of doing it. Most of you will never really, you don't really need to understand things. While your computer's warming up, could you close the door? Thanks, Ariel. Okay, we have our start node and our end node. And then we're going to have cost over here. And then units shipped. I didn't mean to do that. Units shipped. Okay, now what this problem is doing is how are we going to distribute, how are we going to get our stuff from point A to point B? And the problems we've already done had 2 nodes. Now we've got 3 steps. So we have an origin, then we have like a redistribution center, and then we have a final destination. So this is more like a UPS problem. You know, you buy UPS, you take something to UPS, UPS ships it to a hub, and then it's redistributed out. It doesn't go straight from your door to the person you're sending it to. There's a stop in between. Post office, FedEx, they all work the same way. Most companies work the same way. Walmart, I remember driving to Kansas, Walmart always had a redistribution plant in St. George, Utah. You drive through there and there's like 1,000 Walmart trucks there because that's where everything goes and then they redistribute. So this is talking about how to optimize that. And what the problem shows us is that we have 600, doesn't matter what the items are, but 600 electronic items in Denver, 400 in Atlanta. And then it shows the cost to get those from Denver to Kansas City and Denver to Louisville, and then from Atlanta to Kansas City and Atlanta to Louisville. And then all the costs to go from Kansas City to Detroit, Kansas City to Miami, Kansas City to Dallas, Kansas City to New Orleans, and so forth. And then you see how many you have to have end up in each of those locations. So this isn't one you do in your head. This is pretty complicated. But I'm going to show you a pretty easy way to hammer through this. Okay, so we're going to start up here and do the start nodes. What are our 2 start nodes?
Denver and Atlanta.
Yeah, Denver and Atlanta. And since each is going to 2 places, well, we're going to start with Denver, start node, end node. What are the 2 possible end nodes for Denver?
Kansas City and Louisville.
Kansas City and Louisville, correct. KC. And then we'll go to this cell. Denver, Louisville. Okay. And what's the cost to go from Denver to KC? 2. And the cost to go from Denver to Louisville? 3. Okay. Make sure you know where I'm getting these numbers. It's not difficult, just if you don't, make sure you're following along in the book to see where it's coming from. Okay. So now we're going to go to Atlanta, which is our other start point. In Atlanta, you can go to 2 places. And what are those 2 places? The same. So I'm just going to cut and paste those down so I don't have to retype it. And how much does it cost to go from Atlanta to KC?
3.
3. And from Atlanta to Louisville? 1. All right. Now we've got all of our stuff to KC and Louisville. So how many places can KC go? the stuff goes from KC to how many places?
4.
4. Detroit, Miami, Dallas, and New Orleans. So we do the same thing we did for this. Now we're going to do 4 KCs. And the 4 places are Detroit, Miami. I'm using the MBA designations here. What's the MBA designation for New Orleans? Just NO, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how much does it cost to go from KC to Detroit?
2.
2. I'm going to rely on you guys to tell me this. I want to make sure you know where I'm getting these numbers. From KC to Miami? 6. Okay. And from KC to Dallas? 3. And KC to New Orleans is 6. Right, now we're going to do, we did all these for KC, now we're going to do it for Louisville. Just going to put LV for Louisville because I'm lazy. Drag that down for it, and then I can just cut and paste all of these names so I don't have to type them again. One thing I'll show you how to do is be lazy in Excel. Okay. You guys keeping up okay? I would have had to go so much slower the first week of class. Now you guys are all Excel experts. You're like, this keyboard shortcut, here we go. All right, and let's go. How much to go from Louisville to Detroit? 4. Okay, Louisville to Miami? 4. Louisville to Dallas? 6. And Louisville to New Orleans? 5. All right. Next, are units shipped? These are yellow cells. Okay. And we're already about halfway done. Okay, now I tend to go this direction on these. You can put this next section wherever you want to. Where I'm putting this stuff is really not that important, in all honesty. So I usually just kind of shove it somewhere over here. I'm going to put node. This is when we're setting up for solver, so solver can do the work so we don't have to do linear algebra. And so we're just going to label each node in the order that, you see how they're labeled in the problem? Denver has a little 1 over it within the node. I'm just going to use that same order. Denver's 1, Atlanta 2, KC 3, Louisville 4. I'm just going to go in that same order. I'm going to go Denver, the ATL, KC, Louisville, Detroit, Miami, Dallas, New Orleans. Okay. And then up here, I'm going to label this one. I'm going to combine those cells. You don't have to. It's just kind of what I do. Unit shipped. And this will be in and out. Unit shipped in and unit shipped out. Okay. How many units are shipped into Denver?
600.
No, that's how many they have. How many are shipped into Denver? 0. Okay, that's where everything starts. Kind of a trick question. Same with Atlanta. Nothing is shipped in. All right? And so we're going to leave shipped into Atlanta and Denver is blank. You could put 0 there too, wouldn't matter. How many are shipped out of Denver?
600.
Well, we don't know, right? Well, I mean, we do know it's 600, but how many are shipped out of Denver into KC and how many are shipped out to Louisville? That's what we're going to put in here. So we're going to do a sum function, or however you want to do sum. You can do it manually. And we're just going to put each place that Denver ships, we're going to add them together. And remember, that's the yellow cell. That's unit shipped. We already have it labeled. So that's going to be this cell. And I'm just going to hit the control button and select that cell. So we're going to sum those two together. You can also just highlight them both at once. You can get the same answer. Okay, so Denver, you're going to add how many they're shipping to each. Now we know down the line this has to total to 600, which is going to be a constraint. But for right now, that's what we're adding. So for Atlanta, which two cells do I add together? These two, right? Because we're starting in Atlanta, so that's what's being shipped out of Atlanta. So we add those two together. And this is going to be a pattern that we do for all these cells. And it's just a matter of understanding why you're doing the pattern, but once you do, it's not too bad. So how many are being shipped into KC?
We don't know, right?
We don't know how many, but we do know how to find out if there were numbers in these boxes, what would we add together to find out what's shipped into KC?
Denver plus Atlanta.
Which rows? Yeah, you're right.
The D5 and D7.
That's right. D5, and I hit Control and go D7. Because see, it's set the ending point is Kansas City. So that's how many are arriving. So where it says end node KC, that's how many are coming in. Okay, so we're going to do that for all of these. So we're going to do an auto sum. Where are Louisville's? So wherever things are arriving in Louisville, we just select those cells. So D6 and D8. Okay, Detroit, where are things arriving in Detroit? Okay, we just look for the Detroit right there and highlight that cell. So that's D9 and D13. Miami, now it's just kind of a tedious process as you go through this, but be detail oriented. This is where students make their mistakes, is they get these wrong. D10 and D14 for Miami. So if your sheet doesn't work, it's usually because you lost concentration during this part. Okay, now we have Dallas, which is D11 and D15. And then we have New Orleans, which is D12 plus D16. All right, now we have to finish our outs. So things are going out from these places. So things are, we've already done Denver and Atlanta, so now we're going to go to Kansas City. So everywhere Kansas City, oops, I'm going to do my sum function because it's easier. Okay, so wherever things are leaving Kansas City, so we total wherever things are starting in Kansas City over here, we're going to total all those up because that will tell us everything that's leaving Kansas City. So D9 to D12. And now we're going to do the same thing for Louisville. So it's just these four down here. These are all the cells where something is leaving Louisville. Is this making sense as we're going through it? Okay. I don't hear anybody yelling or screaming. Okay, and how many are leaving Detroit? 0. Okay. Just wondering who had the guts to say it first.
Detroit through New Orleans has 0, right?
What's that?
Detroit through New Orleans has 0.
Right, because nothing's leaving there. That's where things are ending up. All right, so we have those cells done. Now for our next row, I put net shipments. So this is going to be how many are going out minus how many are coming in. That'll give us our net shipment number. So that's easier than it sounds. That's just H7 minus G7. Okay, and then we're going to drag that sucker all the way to the bottom.
So it's out minus in?
Out minus in will give us our net shipments. Okay, now you have to pay attention a little bit. It doesn't get difficult, it's just an easy place to make a mistake. All right, we got to do our signs here. Well, I'm going to wait on the signs until I do this one. This is supply. So this is how many are being supplied. So this is where we finally get to use those numbers for our constraints and where things start. So our supply for Denver, how many do we have supplied in Denver? 600, right. And how many do we have supplied in Atlanta?
400.
Okay, how many do we have supplied in KC?
We don't know.
None. How many in Miami? I'm not Miami, Louisville?
No?
None. Okay, here's the tricky part, not that tricky, but how many do we have supplied in Detroit? And it's not 0.
200?
Sort of. It's negative 200.
Negative 200?
Negative 200, because that's for the sake of Excel, it's going to be there's a couple ways to do this. The easiest way is when you get to your demand, it's just the negative supply. It's the inverse of the supply. So we just see the numbers there on the far right, we're just going to enter those in as negatives. So you get negative 200, negative 150, negative 350, and negative 300. All right, now we have to set up our cells, our direction cells for our constraints. So the supply has to be, you can't have more than 600 be the supply, but it can be less and still meet all the demand, right? You don't have to ship everything. So this is going to be a less than or equal to. Okay. Same with this one. Now the rest of these are all equal signs. Because once you leave, we have to have the exact right amount for the demand. For supply, I mean, if I put, instead of 600, I put 30,000, we wouldn't use them all. But for the rest of them, you have to be right on. Okay? Well, now we just do our red cell, and then we'll hop into Solver. All right, I'm just going to do total cost because this is a cost function. We want to make sure it's minimized. We're going to use our old friend sum product. And we're going to go the cost, which is C5 to C16. So we're going to highlight that column. And then we're going to highlight the yellow cells. Close parentheses. I'll leave that there for you guys to copy if you're catching up. Can you see over me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It doesn't matter which one you refer to, does it?
It does not matter. No. Okay, moving on. Oh, we're going to color that red. And now we're going to jump into Solver. You guys pretty much know what to do from here. We're going to minimize cost. We're going to change our yellow cells. It's a linear problem. Going to add the constraints. Okay, solve. And see what Solver did there is it told us our total cost, but it also tells us how many, that's important but not that important. But the real importance is it tells us how many to ship from each location. So this answers the shipping problem. So where do we ship to, how many do we ship to each place? Well, it's just been done for us. There aren't many other ways to do this that don't involve like 3 days of math. Okay, so this is a pretty simple solution. You guys feeling kind of comfortable with this? Not too bad? Okay.